War Thunder. In this video I'm going to be teaching you how you can fly like a top pilot in arcade battles planes, and we're going to be starting right from scratch. So that means I'm going to be showing you both beginner tips and also pro tips towards the later portion of the video, and also I'm going to be showing you some actual battle footage towards the end of the video. Now then, we're going to start from the very beginning, as if you just started playing this game. That means the control layout. Now, there are plenty of different inputs that you can use in War Thunder, but the one that I'm going to be showing you here is the mouse and keyboard, and in the opinions of many people, probably the best one to use. What you're going to do is go into Controls, and you're going to go to Control Setup Wizard. You're going to click on Air, you're going to click Control Setup Wizard, and you're going to select the mouse aim option. Now, this is my control setup right here. Once you select the mouse aim, it'll pretty much be the same as what I have. Albeit, I have changed some things over here, I think mostly with just the large caliber and small caliber guns. I've set it so that I use my small caliber guns on my right mouse button, and so that means that I can fire my large cannons and also my small caliber guns with my left mouse button. But if I want to just use my small caliber guns, then I use my right mouse button. Now, before we actually go out into flying, there's one more thing that you need to do in the interface. You want to select all of these to be always on: your fuel indication, your ammo indication, and your temperature indication. Once those are up, you'll notice in the top left that you have a lot of parameters to look at, but it's actually not too much to worry about, because in arcade, you don't have to worry about oil and water too much unless you're constantly wepping the entire match and you're literally alive for about 15 minutes. Then your engine might actually break, but that almost never happens. Where possible, when you go into a match, you want to make sure that you have the least amount of fuel as possible, because any more fuel will just weigh you down, and the lifespan of a plane in arcade battles is usually not that long. So it's best to keep the fuel amount as low as possible so that you'll have the best chance against your opponent. Now we're going to start off with the basics: when to use your keyboard and when to use your mouse. Your keyboard is going to be doing the major motions. Your mouse is more about the slight adjustments. As you can tell right now, I'm just using my mouse and not even touching my keyboard. These are slight adjustments. Now I'm going to use my keyboard, and you'll notice that the turning is a lot sharper. So essentially what you're going to be doing is using your keyboard mostly all the time, because it pretty much overrides what your mouse is inputting. But whenever you're trying to focus down on an enemy, say you've done your major movements, and then you just need to make slight adjustments to actually get onto the aiming reticle, then you just use your mouse to ease into it. Now then, there are plenty of different ways to make a turn in War Thunder. A lot of people would be inclined to just roll on their side and then just pitch on up. And that's not a bad idea for a turn. However, it's actually not the most efficient way to make a turn. What you also want to be doing is pitching up, but also using your rudder at the same time, like so. And by doing that, you actually do a sharper turn than you would if you rolled on your side and then use the pitch up key. Now here comes a more intermediate / pro tip. If you want to turn more sharply, even than that, then you want to actually try to stall out, because the slower your plane goes, then the sharper the turn. So what I tried to do here is I try to climb up, lose speed, use my rudder at the same time, and then I just let gravity push me down. And that can let me do a sharper turn than normal. Throttle control is very important to master, and you use them in different situations. I've got my throttle control set up both on my control and shift key. So when I press control, it lowers the throttle, and when I press shift, it ups the throttle. Now, you're going to want to use the throttle to try to adjust shots or to make your opponent overshoot. For example, if I lower my throttle, then my opponent might have more speed than me and overshoot. If I raise it, then that should allow me to, for example, gain speed so that I can keep my altitude so that I don't stall, or it could be used to turn even sharper or to adjust my shots onto an opponent. If you hold shift for long enough, then you actually engage your wartime emergency power. And what this does is, for a limited amount of time, depending on what plane you use, it'll be different, but for a limited amount of time, you're essentially getting more speed from your engine than you can possibly get. But mind you, if you keep it on for too long, then eventually your engine will cut out. But luckily in arcade battles, this will eventually come back. Now what you'll notice when you start using your wartime emergency power for too long is that your engine will start to putter, and shortly afterwards it'll cut out. What you don't want to do is get to that stage. You don't want it to cut out, because that puts you in a detrimental sort of position. So you use that putter as a notification to stop using the wartime emergency power. And simply by letting go, then you start building up your wartime emergency power again. So once you master the basics and you want to start flying more like a pro, then what you're going to start doing is using your wartime emergency power in turns.